Okay, I think I'm going to get started. I think most cooperators that are coming are here, and those that are not will catch up. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting. It's for buildings 1, 4, and 5. For those of your neighbors that are not here, please let them know that this is being taped and it will be on the RCN channel. For those cooperators that do not have the RCN channel, we'll be showing it in the cooling rooms. People that don't do that, we will have some copies available on DVD if you come into the office. Sometime next week, you can borrow a copy to view at home. So let your neighbors know that, so that as many people in buildings 1, 4, and 5 that can will get to see this presentation. My name is Morris Benjamin. I'm president of the Board of Directors, for those of you that do not know me. I'd like to introduce Walter Mankoff. He's a board member, he's a treasurer, and he's also chairperson of the HVAC committee and has done a great job in that committee.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our town hall on the mechanical phase of our HVAC project. For the first part, we had 3 town halls, 1 in each building. They were extremely successful. And like with the movies, when there's a good movie, you have a sequel. We decided we would have a sequel for the second phase. We think it'll be very informative and very valuable, and we hope you feel the same after you've heard it. We'll give you all a chance to ask questions after we're through with the several parts of the presentation. And we'll be here, I believe, reasonably, but as long as we need to answer all your questions. So don't feel that you have to squeeze it in a hurry. We'll be glad to take it. Let me introduce the people on the dais, if I may. I'm not doing it in order. I'm doing it by their grouping, if you permit me. First from the co-op, and these people you'll recognize, I think. We have Brendan Caney, our general manager. Ryan Dietrich, our assistant manager for operations and a key person on the HVAC project. And down at the end, I see Chris Solomon, our HVAC coordinator in the HVAC office. Morris, you met already, our president. And in the audience, I see 2 people that are key people, but they're not up on the podium. One is Ann Rothwell, who's sitting down front here, who works in the HVAC office and is in contact with all of you. And I see Naomi Goldstein, our Education and Communications Director, who's been very busy helping get out some of the written material that's been going to your office. Let us start the program. I don't plan to make a speech. Let me first start by, let me introduce first the other people who are our guests here tonight. First we have John Robbins from the firm of Turner, Townsend, Furzan and Robbins, our owner's representative, TTFR for short, the easy way, and Joe DiNapoli from the same firm. And then we have Bill Cahill from R.C. Dolner, our general contractor for the project, and he will be showing you via a PowerPoint presentation exactly what's going to be happening in your apartment as we go into this phase. We think you'll be pleased with what you see. We believe you'll be pleased with what happens in your apartment. And we're hoping it all goes very well and will be extremely successful. Let me start by asking Brendan Caney to start the presentation off, and then we'll move on from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Good evening, everybody. So this is phase 2, the mechanical phase. You've been through, I think, already, at least in buildings 1, 4, and 5, the ACM work. And I just want to take a few moments and give you a little overview of the project and introduce you to our contractor, who's going to take you through the schedule that you can look forward to. And some of you will have received notices in the last couple of days. It took much longer than we would have liked in the bidding phase to get a general contractor. Part of the problem was many contractors that we bid out to, unfortunately, had difficulty bidding the whole job. The original intention was to bid all 10 buildings, and many contractors didn't want to do that because of the risk, and they were very concerned about getting into occupied apartments, being able to keep a schedule. And we had a number of contractors, and if you may have read some of this in the minutes, but we had a number of contractors who just wouldn't bid on 10 buildings. So this necessitated working with our owner's rep to narrow the amount of work, and we narrowed it down to 3 buildings, buildings 1, 4, and 5. And we had much more success in finding bidders who were agreeable to do 3 buildings and deal with some of the risk associated with the 3 buildings. The successful bidder was R.C. Dolner, the contractor we have chosen. But we have worked every day with this contractor to bring the contractor up to speed. In addition to the plans and specifications, there are a lot of logistical issues associated with this job. And with the help of John Robbins and his team from Turner, Townsend, and Frazan Robbins, and our contractor here, R.C. Dolner, and we certainly can attest to what we've seen thus far. They are very professional in how they behave and very professional in how they go about setting up the work. And we have every expectation that that will be the case all through the phase of the project. As everybody, I think, at this point is aware, we have a very short duration within which to do this work. We're starting in the next week, and we have to have this work completed so that we can provide heat as is legally required on October 1. This will mean that we have to get into every apartment on the appointed date, and that we will need the full cooperation of all of our cooperators. I have every expectation that will be the case. We have gotten it in the past. I have to tell you the good news on the ACM work, the asbestos removal work. We got into every apartment on the appointed day. We completed the work in the appointed schedule, and the outcome of that was an absolute huge success. And we expect that we'll have the same on the mechanical portion, I have no doubt, although it involves many more appointments than just that one day when you had to be out of your apartment on the asbestos work for most apartments. We decided early on to split the projects. It made all the sense in the world. We were dealing with various different seasons, and we wanted to try and accomplish the asbestos removal, which was a significant portion of the work, during the winter months when we could continue to provide heat during that period. And that was one of the reasons for splitting it. It also made a lot of sense to split the work because a general contractor was going to have to go out and sub out the asbestos removal portion of the work anyway. And there were logistical issues associated with the permitting aspect of the asbestos work versus the mechanical work. So it made all the sense in the world to separate the projects. It made financial sense as well. And that's what we done. And I think it was a good idea, and that's what, of course, we'll continue to do throughout the entire project. Fan coil units, we went through a significant process, bidding process, educational process. It was an education for us. We had to learn a lot about fan coil units, about the various different technologies available. And there were a number of manufacturers that we went out to. We narrowed it down to one, the company we have contracted with, Train. They're a very large corporation. The fan coil units are being made here in the United States, in Georgia. And 144 of them should be on their way to us. And we will get them in allotments delivered to the mechanical contractor's yard, and then they'll be brought on premises and installed. The question, and we dealt with some of this in the first phase of meetings, the question was asked, why did you increase the fan coil unit size when everything else in the way of electronics is getting smaller. Remember that the original 1962 vintage fan coil units were like the Model T Ford. There wasn't a lot of luxuries associated with them. They were a basic unit, an on-off, if you will, switch, and that was it. The new units have much more in the way of controls, motors, ECM motors, and equipment that would not be possible to install in a cabinet of the original size. It necessitated us having to go larger. This was not just with one manufacturer. We looked at all of the manufacturers, and there was no manufacturer that made the same size unit. So that's the reason we chose a slightly larger unit, because it was the only one that was made. And I think we chose well when we chose the company Train, because they certainly had the better unit, and I think the unit that we ended up becoming most comfortable with. John Robbins and his folks were very helpful in this process in helping us with our engineers prepare the necessary specifications. And we had a very significant vetting process by all of the manufacturers, several models of the unit sent back to us, and mock-ups and whatnot. And finally, we have selected the unit that we have. The smaller of the two is 38¼ inches by 10 inches deep, 25 inches high. And the larger of the unit is 48 inches by 10 inches deep and 25 inches high. So these are the two sizes that we're working with. And as I said, the units are being delivered to us. When we looked at the units, we took into consideration air quality. We went with a filter in the unit, a MERV, I believe it was MERV 5, am I correct? 5, the filter system, to make sure that we filtered the air and we had the best possible available filtering type system on the unit that we could. And I know that was a question somebody called my office during the week and said we should address at tonight's meeting. So that was done. Let me talk a little bit about security guards on the project and security on the project. The ACM portion of the project, phase 1, the asbestos, was a very significant concern. It's all of concern, but this was a very significant concern. Because, as I had said to the contractors and everybody involved, we're asking shareholders and cooperators not to be home during this portion of the work. They cannot be in the apartment, and we're sending strangers into their apartment. So we have to ensure that we do a background check on everybody that works for the asbestos company, and we have to provide security guards throughout the building, entering the building, to make sure that people's valuables in apartments are secure. I think it was a success. I've not gotten one complaint with regard to anything that went missing from any apartment in the 3 buildings we have completed, and folks weren't home. Similarly, on the mechanical phase, we intend to address it very similarly. We intend to have a significant number of security guards, ensuring that the personnel from the contractor that enters the building and leaves the building during lunch hour is to check out, so we keep track of everybody coming in and out of the building that associated with the project all day long. We're doing background checks on all of the personnel to ensure that there's no issues there. And if there is any issue, then that person doesn't work for us, doesn't work on this project. So we take security very seriously. We're going to ensure that we have significant security. We initially were going to go out to an outside firm to help us provide security, because this is for a short duration that we will need an extra number of people, and it's hard to hire that many people and then have to let them go again in a few months, because we won't necessarily need all of them through the winter. So unfortunately, it didn't work out. It was difficult trying to find security outfits that provided union personnel, but when we did, we had some difficulties negotiating back and forth with them. So we eventually decided to just hire our own people, and that's what we've done. So Larry O'Neill will continue to supervise our staff, and we have brought on an additional 4 people in addition to our existing staff to cover the various different shifts. I think we'll have a total complement, Ryan. It's an additional 8 people that we will have. We had some people left over from the ACM portion, and we had to bolster that, and we will have an additional 4, so giving us a total of 8 additional people. Using keys, we have from the ACM portion gotten a bottom lock key for every apartment. So we have access through the bottom lock for every apartment. As we talk more about the schedule, and you'll recognize that we're going to be in and out of your apartment a few times. Now, some folks work, and they're not going to be able to be home, and we can use your key, but we need your permission to do so. So you'll contact the HVAC office, make arrangements, and we can use the bottom lock key. And what we've done is we put blue tape across the top lock, and you might wonder, well, if you've made arrangements, you're not going to lock your top lock. Why are they putting blue tape over? People forget. It's force of habit. You come out in the morning, the natural thing that you will want to do is lock your 2 locks. You go off to work. Now I can't get into your apartment because we don't have a key for the top lock. So we put the tape across in part to remind you that you shouldn't lock your top lock on the day that we're entering the apartment. We have downstairs, and this is the negative aspect of the second phase, but there's not much we can do about it. When you're replacing pipes, you obviously can't run anything through the old pipes. So you're not going to have air cooling for that period, and we've come out and we've dealt, and the board has done a fantastic job dealing with management and our electrical consultants for several months, trying to figure out what we could permit in the way of air conditioning and what we could not, what we could not allow you to do. Because remember, our electrical infrastructure is 1962 vintage also. And unfortunately, you cannot put an air conditioner in every window of whatever size you might like. We have limitations in terms of what you can do. But it's one summer. And the hope here is we've let you know what you can do and what the limitations on that are, and you can contact us if you're not clear about it. But we also are providing cooling stations downstairs. Somebody reminded me we shouldn't call them comfort stations. That has a very different distinction. So they're cooling stations. We're providing them downstairs. For anybody who wants to, you can use the room downstairs. We'll have a TV, couches is comfortably set up, Wi-Fi, TV. So it'll be very comfortable. I think those who went through the ACM portion and utilized the rooms downstairs felt that they were very comfortable. And that'll be available every day to any cooperator, whether we're working in your apartment or not. If you live in that building and you need air cooling and you don't have anything at home, then you're welcome to use that room. So that will be available, for example, in Building 1, it'll be available on the ground floor. Building 4 is going to get to double up with Building 5 because we don't have a room in 4 to provide, but we have a large room in 5. We will monitor the situation. If there's a feeling that the room is not large enough for whatever the reason, we will provide another room. But there will be ample space for you to be able to go to a cooling room, a cooling station downstairs. HVAC office, you may already have noticed that we have moved out of the management office. The management office has now been relocated to the 8A community room. We'll be there the end of August, beginning of September, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on how fast the schedule goes. If we can move back sooner, we will. But obviously, we're going to be out of that space until the ground floor work is completed in Building 4. Similarly, in Building 5, the HVAC office will have to relocate because we have to replace the pipes on the ground floor in Building 5. It will be relocated to Building 10. The old former RCN ground floor space in Building 10, the doctor's office, if you will, RCN used it for a period of time. There'll be a sign, so it won't be confusing. But it'll be relocated to there, and I believe that occurs July 13th. So we'll be relocating the HVAC office on July 13th, and the same phone numbers will work, but the HVAC office will be based out of 365 West 28, Building 10, on the ground floor in the office. I think that covers it for me. Walter mentioned earlier, we're available to answer any and all questions, and we will. I'd ask that you try and hold your questions till the end. R.C. Dolner essentially is going to give you slightly abbreviated version of what they'd done for our board of directors. When they came in to make their final presentation and they laid out the job, they essentially went through the various different sequences of the job, and you're going to get to see pretty much tonight what they showed the board of directors, only maybe a slightly reduced version of that. One thing I think I might mention, there are two sectors in a building. Let's take building 1. We decided, because of the number of personnel working in a given building at a time, and considering elevator usage in those buildings. And as you're aware, we do not have a freight or / service elevator. We only have 2 regular passenger elevators. It became important that we take a look at how many people can we have working on a given floor, utilizing the elevator, and so on and so forth. As part of that consideration, we recognized very quickly that it was not going to be possible to do a whole floor at a time, first floor, second floor, third floor, all 9 apartments on every floor. We recognized that was going to be difficult with the amount of material we needed to bring on the floor, the toolboxes, gang boxes, if you will, for the mechanical company, the demolition, and all of the various different aspects of what needs to go on a floor. It was going to be difficult to do all 9 apartments. So we decided to break each building up into 2 sectors, Sector 1 and Sector 2. We call them sectors because we have phases and we have all these other terms, so we figure let's go with sector. Sector 1 is the A line, all of the A line apartments through E. So it's A through E. And obviously Sector 2 is the balance of the building. So starting in Building 1, Sector 1, this coming Monday, doing demolition in Sector 1, and you've gotten your notices, and that's how we're going to approach each of our single buildings. And next year when we get to our double buildings, I suspect if this is working well, we'll continue and employ the same idea where we break each side of a double building. For example, Building 2A will have 2 sectors, and 2B will have 2 sectors. Now, as we move along, we may adjust, refine the schedule. Adjustments will be made in the field as much as we can to build in efficiency. That's key. We need to be able to build in efficiency as we move through the building. If we find we can do things faster, we want to do them faster. And we'll get into some of this when we get into the schedule. The original concept was I wanted to be able to tell if there were 8 tasks in an individual apartment, I wanted to be able to give you a date for each one of the 8 tasks when I sent out the first letter. That's not possible, because as we move through the building, and you'll see this from the schedule, it starts to become more difficult to give you a definitive date on every task. But the goal ultimately will be to achieve that, but unfortunately some of the earlier apartments that may not be possible in. But as we go into the schedule, and we'll point out to you, we're now giving you hard dates on the demo portion and the mechanical portion. And you will, of course, be contacted with all of the dates for all of the other tasks that needs to be done. I want to take a very quick moment and point out to you that this has been a project that's all about schedule, logistics. This is what it's all about. The actual work itself, while difficult, unpleasant, is not super complicated. But the scheduling and trying to achieve this in occupied apartments is really a challenge. Two people that have, I think, done a great job with that so far, working with us, and have really gotten the brunt of much of any problems that we've had is Christopher Salmon and Anne Rothwell. They have done a fantastic job. They've been at the forefront and trying to give shareholders information when that information was not always available to them, because we were in the background trying to figure out precisely what to do. But I think they have really done a terrific job. I think we have mastered this to some degree. We'll continue to master it as we move forward. With that, let me turn it over to R.C. Dolner, who will take us through the schedule. I'm sorry. Oh, John Robbins, I apologize. He was okay with that. I apologize. John and his team, I want to tell you, have done on the asbestos work a fantastic job. It would not be possible. Management could not do this by ourselves. There's just no way. John and his team of professionals have really done a fabulous job. Joe DiNapoli, I promised him we'll get him a cot in the HVAC office in Building 5. He's spending that much time here. And John has been spending a lot of time as well. So with that, John, why don't you take us through your portion?
Thank you, Brendan. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep my comments very brief, and as has already been outlined by Brendan, I think he's provided a very good overview of the project that Bill will get into much more detail with in a PowerPoint presentation. But I thought I would make just a couple of comments about the past 18 months as this project has developed and has now very much come to fruition. Thank you all for your cooperation, as Brendan expressed as well, during the ACM removal portion. It really virtually went without a hitch. We had a couple of little leaks and some other issues to deal with, but when you think within construction, all the things that can go wrong, it was really a very, very smooth process, and you had a lot to do with that in your cooperation of letting the workers into your apartments that we could move through the buildings quickly and efficiently. And that actually became somewhat of a good model for the work that will now start on Monday, the mechanical portion, understanding that this work, we certainly won't try to mask that it is going to be more intrusive work. You'll hear about a number of tasks that need to be performed. Brendan touched on the demolition work that will start, the mechanical portion, the replacement of the piping work. All of that work is certainly a bit more intrusive, takes a bit more time that Bill will get into more detail about. But again, we will very much appreciate your cooperation to get through that work as quickly as possible. And then some of the final tasks that will occur to close up the shaftways, install the fan coil unit, do some testing and pipe insulation and painting and getting your residences, your apartments back in shape. Some of that work will be accomplished in a bit quicker fashion, but we are projecting that there's going to be about 8 to 10 days that workers will be in your apartment overall. And again, Bill will get into the detail of how that breaks down for each of the 7 or 8 tasks that we need to perform. The process has been a bit of an arduous one, certainly through the design phases. Brendan touched on the pre-purchase process of the fan coils, but I do have to say that working with Brendan, Walter, and Morris virtually on a day-to-day basis, and also with your board of directors on a very frequent basis, all has gone very well, and we've achieved good buying power for the dollars that are being expended for what is a great deal of work that will be accomplished here at Penn South. I'm just going to comment a couple of points about R.C. Dolner, because Bill may be too shy to touch on it himself. But obviously, the bulk of the dollars are being spent now on this portion of the work. The ACM work is expensive, but the mechanical work and all the related trade work that goes along with that over the next 70 or so days as we approach the new heating season, that is really where the bulk of the investment is being made. And we went through a very long process of selecting the right general contractor. We started, I'm not going to remember all the numbers, Joe could probably help me, with 20 some odd firms that we started the process with in a qualification process. And over time, we whittled that list down to separate out those that really had interest in the project from those that did not, and then ultimately went through a competitive bidding process that took about 8 or 9 weeks to get through in its entirety. And here we are today with R.C. Dolner. For me personally, I think as we went through that process, certainly pricing was a big part of the issue, but we really wanted to find a contractor that understood how to do work in occupied space. There's lots of work done in New York City in occupied buildings, generally in big office buildings, but this is a very unique complex because these are your homes. And we really wanted to hear from the right contractor how they would get through this work. And what we learned with R.C. Dolner, along with all the technical issues, is that they knew how to, and Bill will touch on some of their previous work, do this kind of work in a residential complex while being very respectful of the cooperators, the homeowners, and that was a big part of selecting R.C. Dolner, and certainly along with their experience. And in turn, we looked very closely at the various trade contractors, particularly the mechanical contractor, because they are doing the lion's share of the work in the piping replacement, to make sure that they also brought the same attitude and same skill set. And I think we've got a great team with R.C. Dolner and their trade contractors. And again, Bill will touch a little bit more upon their experience. But then Bill is also going to get into the detail of exactly what's going to happen, as Brendan laid out, in each of the sectors, as we've split up the building. And I can tell you we spent countless hours looking at each building every which way to Sunday, and every sort of logistical imagination that we could come up with to be as efficient as possible to get this work done as quickly as possible, to get in and out of your dwellings, out of your residences as soon as we possibly could. And I think we've come up with the right plan to do that. And as Brendan mentioned, we may have to make some tweaks along the way. We did that with the ACM work. And it actually helped out quite a bit to get through the work even a bit faster. And so there may be some tweaks along the way. And from a schedule standpoint, as we've already heard, it's difficult to be specific at this point what's going to happen on, let's say, day 56 from today. But what we are going to do is every day the schedule will be looked at. We are going to do what we refer to as a look-ahead schedule, that at least 2 weeks in advance, we can, in fact, be very specific about each day that we will need to be in your units, in your apartments, to do the various work with a very specific description of the task that will happen during that time period or on that specific day. So there'll be a great deal of communication, as it has already occurred. I think that level of communication will increase even more now as we go through the mechanical phase. And again, Brendan mentioned Chris and Ann and the wonderful work that's been done. And together with my team, we're very much a part of that process. Joe lives in the HVAC office as well, pretty much, with your folks here. And we will be part of the team to help monitor and manage the work that will begin on Monday. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bill Cahill from R.C. Dolner.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity of bringing R.C. Dolner into your homes. We're going to start this process. We're going to work it from beginning to end, and we look forward to the challenge that lies ahead. The panel up here, we've been involved with the process for probably, like John said, 8 to 9 weeks, and I've never seen a group that pays attention to as much details as the folks that you see here, and Ann as well. So it's been a good start so far. So what I'd like to do is start by giving you a little, with the presentation, I want to give you a little background about R.C. Dolner. If you want any more further details, you could jump on our website. It's rcdolner.com. But I just want to go through some similar projects to give you an idea of what we're all about and what type of work we've worked on in the past. And then I want to get into the details of the mutual project. One of the things that was touched base on before was that this project for us is something that a lot of contractors will run away from. If you turn around and you take away the aspect of being an occupied building, the job is very simple. What we happen to specialize in is doing that actual renovation work in occupied facilities. I'm going to try the laser pointer here. If it doesn't show up, it works. A couple of the recent past projects, you might recognize some of these. This up here is Peter Cooper Village. We're doing a lot of renovation work in Peter Cooper Village probably for the past year and a half or so, and we're going to continue working with them over there. This is a project we did in Bayside, Queens, which is the Ozanam Hall Nursing Home. It's a 488-bed nursing home, and we renovated the entire project, and the project remained 95% occupied throughout the process. So if we basically went into each room, relocated the residents from their room, renovated the room, and relocated them back while we were renovating the room next to it. So the logistics of this it was probably a little bit more difficult than we face here, but not much. These are some of the occupied buildings, and I'm showing up. These are all hotels that we've worked on in the past that were occupied renovations. John and Brendan both touched base on the idea and concept of sectors, and I'm putting this up here for a reason. In the hotel industry, when we're renovating a hotel, basically they take one floor off at a time. And they say, we're going to take this floor offline, you do your renovation, and we'll bring the floor back online. And in that time, there are, depending on the size of the group, there's a tremendous amount of manpower that's going in and out of that floor. And the concept of doing a floor-by-floor basis with having the occupied aspect of it, it's just not going to work well here because there'll be too many people on the floor, and you have your lives to live on a daily basis, so it would just be too cumbersome. So that's why we broke up the project. These are some of the other projects that we worked on. We've done a tremendous amount of work in the Metropolitan Museum. There's probably not a gallery or a mechanical room space that we haven't really touched base on. Brendan mentioned security. Well, we were working in the Metropolitan Museum. Security obviously is tantamount. There are, I don't have to tell you the priceless artifacts that we have there, but it's the security, it's the care, it's the contractors that we bring to the table, and it's the same group of contractors that we'll bring into your homes. These are some other buildings that we've worked on that are occupied. This is residential as well. This is Lincoln Center. We recently redid the promenade at Lincoln Center. I don't know if anybody's been there, but the canopies that you see and the whole plaza and promenade, that was all our work. It just gives you the idea that the level of logistics that we're accustomed to. Miller Mechanical is going to be our mechanical sub for the project. We've been working with Miller Mechanical for the past 12 years. These are some of the projects that they worked on. The work, obviously, that we're doing here is not as complicated, but it's as difficult due to the logistics that we're going to be facing. I want to jump. That's basically the background of RC Dolan. I want to jump now into your project, and we were talking about the sector approach to the project. Well, this is it in a pictorial approach. We have two sectors. If you can see the laser pointer, we have two sectors. Sector 1 encompasses apartments A, B, C, D, and E, and it's basically shaded in where you see here in green. Those are the apartments that we're going to be starting with, and we're going to start on the ground floor or the first floor and work our way all the way up through the 21st floor. And we're basically going to be taking half of your floor at a time and doing the renovation process. When we get to the 21st floor over here on Sector 1, we're going to move to Sector 2. We're going to drop back down to the ground floor and work our way up, once again. And there's a reason for that, is that when you're installing the pipe, you want to be able to install one on top of the other. It's just a better approach rather than trying to connect from below. You're resting the pipe down on top. So we're going to work in a bottom-up approach. Sector 2 involves apartments F, G, H, and J, and it's what you see here denoted in the orange highlights. What I want to do is just touch base on the individual tasks that you're going to be facing with the work that has to go on within your apartments. And we broke these down into different tasks. I'll just read through the tasks quickly, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail as the slides come. Basically, all the tasks that you see here are going to be individual times that we have to enter your apartment to do work. And the first task that we're up against is our demolition phase. Second is the actual riser piping phase and installation of your fan coil units. The third time we're going to be in the apartment is for our riser testing. The fourth time we enter the apartment is to perform the pipe insulation and the controlled inspection phase of the project. Once the controlled inspector says everything looks good, that's when we move into the task 5, which would be the drywall phase, and that's basically the phase where we start closing up your walls. Task 6 here is the polish and painting. Is we're going to come in after the drywall is done and we're going to paint the apartment. The next time we're coming into your apartment will be the fan coil unit commissioning and water balancing phase, and that's the least intrusive of all these phases. What I'm doing here is I'm just giving you a quick approach. I'll get into the details now. The demolition phase, and I won't read through all these because I think that I'll bore you to death, but I just want to touch base on what's going to happen day one when we enter the apartment for the demolition phase. Well, the demolition phase, what we have to do is we have to take out the old pipe and the old fan coil unit, and we have to get the wall ready for the new pipe to be installed. So in order to do that work, what we have to do, first things first, is we enter your apartment and we put down protection. I'm going to go through, I won't touch base here, but I'm going to talk about the protection packages that we're going to be installing in the apartment for each phase. So we're going to go in, we're going to protect the apartment. So let's say that 7 o'clock in the morning, we enter, we protect the apartment. The next person that'll enter the apartment is the demo contractor, and he's going to open up the walls that have to be open to expose the horizontal piping. Then we're going to be taking out the vertical, the horizontal piping, and the fan coil unit. In some of the apartments, there's an additional riser that has to be exposed that's not exposed at this point in time. That'll be done as well at that time. Behind each of the fan coil units, you have a recess in the wall. And what we're doing during the demolition phase, we're calling it demolition, but it's not really demolition, we're prepping for the piping, is we're going to be infilling that recess in the wall. It varies anywhere from a ½ inch to an inch, inch and a half maybe sometimes. We're going to be inserting a piece of drywall in there and taping it off, just basically removing the recess so the new unit will sit flush against the wall. Once the drywall, or that piece of drywall is installed, then we're going to start the electrical work that we have to do in the apartments. Right now, currently the fan coil units are fed from a conduit that comes to the floor and it's directly wired to the unit. What we're doing now is we're installing a receptacle on that conduit, so that's going to take a little time. After that work is done, we're going to go and obviously clean up the apartment and get ready for you to occupy the apartment that night. We anticipate that this duration, because we have to go and do the demolition, the protection, the patching of the walls, and the electric work, it's probably going to be a 2-day duration that we're going to be up against here. So we'll start the first day, and the second day is probably going to be mostly electrical work. So the noisy work is going to be done the first day. The second day will be work being performed by the electrician. We have here is the time frame permitted to perform the work. I have 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The reality is that's the broad scope, and what Brendan and John were saying is once we get into the project, we're really going to go and be able to polish this up and really narrow down the time frames that we're talking about here. We need the time because we have to stagger the start of the trades. I can't start everybody all at one time. Putting too many people in the apartment is non-productive. I'm going to go back a slide just to show you the approach. So during the demo phase, what's really going to happen is we're probably going to start in a counterclockwise direction. And we're going to protect apartment A first, and we're going to move to B, move to C, D, E. As soon as apartment A is protected, that's when we're going to send in the demo crew to start demoing out apartment A. And the demo crew is going to follow to B after it's protected, to C to D. After the demo crew is out of A, that's when the drywall contractor comes in and starts his work. And after the drywall contractor is finished there, that's when the electrician comes in. So there's going to be a series of trades. It's not just one person or two people that are going to be in your apartment for the given day. It's going to be, my team, 2 laborers in there protecting the apartment, followed up by probably the 2 demolition contractors, followed up by the one electrician, followed up by the one drywall contractor. And basically what we're going to happen is the trades are just going to chase themselves right around the floor from apartment A to E. Once the electrician is done on A, that's when my labor force comes in, cleans up the apartment, and gets that ready for you to come and take possession of your space again. So that's really the approach. The clockwise approach is going to be the same approach for all the phases, and that's the way we're going to do. So if we say we're going to start at 7, well, maybe we're going to get to your apartment. It might be 7:30, it might be 7:20, it might be 8 o'clock, and it just depends on the productivity of the men and the time that we could finish the work ahead of us. So that's really the demolition phase. I have here down, it's going to be a heavy protection package. The demolition phase is going to be, out of everything, is going to be the noisiest phase. It's a lot of work. We have to open up the walls. We have to take out pipes. We have to cut the pipes with Sawzall. So it's going to be, I won't deny it, it's going to be relatively, intrusive. So we have a very heavy protection package that we're putting in there, which we'll discuss in a little bit. The next phase is really the mechanical phase, and this is really where we bring the lifeblood of the system online. What we're going to do, once again, we start the phase. It's going to be, we're going to go in and protect the apartments. And then the fitter is going to come in, and the first thing he's going to do, he's going to send a team through to start installing the fan coils. At the same time, he's going to be sending a team through to start the riser installation. Now, the risers will go first. The fan coils will follow, and we'll work in that same counterclockwise direction. Once the risers are in and the fan coil is installed, now we're going to start the horizontal piping aspect of it. And that's where really a lot of the time is going to be taken, is getting the horizontal piping in. And it's not just putting in the piping, it's all the valves that we have to put in. It's all it's actually getting the water from the vertical, to the unit itself. So it's a little bit more complicated. This, once again, we show a duration from 7 to 7. It's not going to be that. We're going to narrow it down, as time goes on. We're anticipating that we're going to be working basically in 2 floors at a time, 1 sector at a time, for a 2-day duration. So we'll be in your apartment for 2 days, and we're working on top and bottom. So we'll be working on the first floor and the second floor at the same time. And why do we do that? It's the same concept that we talked about before. It's being able to connect the two pipes from above and below. The protection package that we're anticipating here is the heavy package, which will be discussed later. The riser testing, once we get done with the piping installation, what we have to do is test the risers. We don't want to go and wait till the 100% of the work is done and then fill it with water and find out there's some problems that we might have to take care of. So we're going to test. We're going to fill all the risers with water. We're going to send a team through just to go in and check your apartments to make sure there are no leaks. Once we're confident that there are no leaks, then we're going to go and once again protect the place. Once there are no leaks, then we're going to move on to task 4, which is the piping installation and controlled inspection phase of the project. This aspect, the riser testing, the level of intrusion will be in the apartment. The guys will have to remove the temporary protective panels, but the work that they have to do is really just go, remove the panels, listen, make sure they don't hear any leaks, look, visual inspection to make sure the pipe is holding, even look at the fan coil units. The last thing we want to do is put water in the system and have leaks. So the protection package is going to be very light, and they're going to do 5 floors in a given frame. So if we're in your apartment for hopefully a half hour to an hour, that should be the maximum. The insulation phase, well, obviously we have to insulate all the pipes, and as part of the DOB requirements, we're going to have to perform controlled inspections, which basically means we bring in an independent engineer, and he's going to go and inspect the system. And he has to inspect for fire stopping to make sure it's up to code, and he has to inspect the insulation to make sure it's buttoned up and tight. This is an independent engineer that comes in, which is great for us. It's basically checks and balances. And if he says, look, I have a problem with one of the apartments, we take care of it right away. So once we're signed off with let me just touch base. The insulation, we're going to be doing 2 floors at a time, 1 sector at a time. This is, the insulation work should move very quickly, so we're not going to be in your apartment that long, but it's the same duration because we're taking 2 floors at a time. And the protection package that we have here is the medium package. I'll move on to the drywall phase. Basically, when the piping's insulated, the controlled inspector says everything's okay, now we're going to button up the walls. Now we're going to basically take the open walls, close them up, and this is the point of the project where you're going to start to feel, okay, I'm almost home. And it's basically just that. We're going to bring in carpenters to enclose the walls. We anticipate doing 1 floor at a time, 1 sector at a time. So we have the 10 fan coil units that we're going to go and close up the walls on. Task 6 is the polishing and painting phase. With the drywall phase, we're gonna try to get as much done in that given day as we can. And what's going to happen inevitably is that some of the plaster and the compound that we put on the walls, it's not going to be 100% dry. So during the task 6 phase, I'm going to have to come in, or we're going to have to come in, and basically whatever wasn't really 100% at the time when we left the drywall phase, we'll pick it up in the painting and polishing phase. Once we're painted and polished, let me just take a step back. What we're going to do with the painting is we're going to do 2 floors at a time, 1 sector at a time. The painting, I think they're probably going to be in your apartments for maybe an hour and a half to paint the wall that we have to paint. The last phase that we're going to be in there is once the systems are online, now we have to make sure that the unit that you have is properly balanced, the water is flowing correctly, and in general that you have the heating and cooling that you're going to need for hopefully the next 50 years. And moving on here. Those are we touched base on the different times we're entering your apartment, and I had touched base on the protection package, and basically what you can anticipate in your apartment as far as the level of protection that we're going to put in here. We have it denoted. This is Sector 1, Sector 2 is over here. Basically, what you see in pink is paper runners. We're going to have contractors coming in and out of your apartments. They're going to be walking on paper. They're not going to be walking on the carpets or the wood floor. We're going to put down a paper protection for them to walk on. Where you see here in the darker lines, and I don't know if everybody can see it, but we're going to, for the heavy phase, we're going to install plastic, vertical plastic that goes from the floor to ceiling. They call the devices that we're going to be using zip poles, and we're going to be using the zip poles to extend plastic from wall to wall. In some cases, we'll cut short on the wall. We want to limit the intrusion of our work as much as possible. But the plastic the idea of the plastic is to keep the dust and as much of obviously I can't mitigate the noise with plastic, but keep the dust as much as possible confined to the space that we're working on. What we're going to do is in each of the windows we have purchased fans that we're going to put in the windows, and the fan is just going to create a negative pressure such that any of the dust wants to migrate out and not migrate into your apartment. So this would be the protection package. At the locations that we're working on, we're going to be putting masonite down on the floor. So during the demolition and heavy phase, we'll have masonite down on the floor within the work area itself, and then the paper should be in the apartment for the tracking pad. So that's really our heavy protection package that we have here, and the same goes for the Sector 1 and Sector 2. The only difference is the corridors. We're putting a masonite on the floor in the corridors. Obviously, if we're not down in the lower half of Sector 2, we're not going to put masonite on the floor. There's no need for us to put it down if we're not going to be over there. That's the heavy package. The medium package that we have is basically where you're seeing green. Or the pink is the same paper protection, and the green is drop cloths. So for our painting phase, you don't really need anything more than a drop cloth to protect. You don't need the plastic. It should be fine. Everybody's painted their apartments at one point in time in their lives. The masonite that we're putting down is just going to be limited to the elevators, and that's going to be able to set down any of the construction material that we may have on the floors at the time. So that's basically the protection package. The light package we have is a very light package. It's just an engineer entering your apartment for the testing phase there'll be no protection put down. It's a man in penny loafers coming in with a computer. We'll touch base quickly on the schedule, and I'll give you a broad overview of the schedule. We have to be done by September 29th, period, end of story. We have to have heat up and running by September 29th. The way we're going to achieve this is basically a step-by-step process. I gave you an abridged schedule here. The real schedule is probably close to 40 pages. And it goes step by step, phase by phase, not an apartment by apartment. It's a sector by sector and a floor by floor basis. What we're going to do is we're going to start the operations in Building 1. The next building to come online will be Building 4, and the following building will be Building 5. We're going to build in a lag between buildings, the start of buildings. It's approximately 2 weeks. So on the 11th, we're starting Building 1 with the demolition phase. On the 25th, which is 2 weeks later, we're going to be starting Building 4. And we're doing that because we know that we want to refine the process. And to start all 3 buildings at the same time, we're not going to get the real benefit of it. The process will be streamlined very early in the process. We're going to figure out what's the best and fastest way we could do things. The schedule, this goes out to show basically, well, it's very difficult to read on the big screen here. It's even difficult to read on the little screen. I just wanted to just give you a snapshot of what you can expect in your apartment. And this is an overall. I have 2 sample apartments. This is building number 1, apartment 1A, and apartment 5A. We're going to start the demolition in apartment 1A on 6/11 to 6/12. The pipe work will be starting 6/19 to 6/20. Now, many of you say, well, why can't you start the next day? Well, that's a great question, and the reason is that we really can't perform the demolition on top of the guys working below them. We have to build ourselves some space between the installation operation and the demolition and above. If the 2 guys are working together, safety is a big factor. We don't want anything dropping on the guys below, but it's also a production factor. The guys will be able to move faster if people are out of the way, and that's really what the key here is, to get the work done as fast as possible. So it's having the lag between the start of the pipework and the demolition and the start of the pipework is just for that very reason. The testing aspect of it, we're going to be testing 5 floors at a time. So I have to wait until I have the 5 floors of piping installed before I could test the rises. We don't want to test every floor. It just doesn't pay. You're going to probably end up with more leaks in the valves that you set for the test than you will in the piping itself. As soon as we're tested, then we're going to move into the finishes phase, which is the insulation, the drywall, and the painting. And this is the process where I feel here that we could really streamline and we could really hopefully be able to tighten up. We show a little bit of separation between the 2, but as time goes on, we'll refine that. So this is really the snapshot for these 2 particular apartments. And apartment 5A is basically the same thing. I just put 2 random apartments there just to give you an idea. And that's basically our overview of the project. And it is a challenging project. Make no mistake about it. To be able to manage the whole process is a challenge, but it's something that the team has worked very hard. We've paid attention to all of the details, many of the details. I'm sure there'll be some details to come, but we're looking forward to bringing your buildings online. And that being said, I guess I could open up to any questions and answers, or if I could.